Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being with us today. I will call this meeting of Montgomery County School Board to order at 6 o'clock on November 16, 2020. And please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item will be adopting our agenda. May I have a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. The next item, board members, the consent agenda. And as you see, we have rolling Montgomery County Education Foundation grants and also a lot of minutes that we are adopting as we go. So if there's nothing else you want to pull out, we approve them as they are. Don't hear anything, so I'm moving on the payment of the bills. May I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Any questions about the bills? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We approve our bills. The next one, it's our financial summary reports. May I have a motion to accept the acknowledging the receipt of the summary reports?
So moved.
Second.
And motion and second. Any questions regarding that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We approve the summary report. Now we'll be entering our special session, and it starts with the COVID merit stipend for employees update. Dr. Myers.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone tonight, and thanks for coming together for the special session. As you know, you all approved a $2,000 stipend as long as the Board of Supervisors approved $1 million of their CARES Act funding, and that did not happen last week. They approved $500,000 and not the entire $1 million. So Mr. Kranz and I have gotten together and looked at the financials to see what we can possibly approve, and giving you some options. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kranz to go through a couple of slides you may have already seen, and then a slide with some options as to how you would like to proceed with a COVID merit stipend for our employees. Mr. Kranz?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Let's see. So the total of $2,000 for 1,672 employees, which is what we computed the bonus on, was $3.384 million. As you can see on here, the funding for that, which we asked the Board of Supervisors, was using 1/2 of the stipend. So we had carryover, which was $2.086 million, using 1.038 for that. The county CRF, which we received, remember CRF as well. We asked for $1 million. They've approved $500,000. And then our CRF of the $1,730,000, and we used 1.345. That gets us to $2.884 million. Now, as I'm going to talk about on the last slide, the amount that I'm comfortable with and would ask you to consider. All right, Brenda. It's not. So this, next slide, please. Thank you. So we start off with our carryover, the positions of 700 that we're not going to utilize, which gives us a cushion or gives us dollars of 1.747. Assuming the hold harmless, which everything I'm hearing indicates that we're solid through the end of March and that it will extend beyond until June 30th. The thing that I'm hearing on the state side is that no one wants to see K-12 schools be impacted at all, even going into 22 and 23. Everybody understands that could be some times, but I think the legislature's got a strong desire on both sides of the aisle not to see K-12 schools impacted like it was in previous years and the challenges. The remaining CARES Act funds you can see down below, which is $952,000, which is ESSER, which can be spent any which way we want. GEAR, which is very specific to the specific programs we submitted the applications on. And then our CRF, which also can be spent as the board and the administration sees fit for COVID. Ms. Brenda? So this particular slide shows you what we call option A, B, C, and D. Option A is the $2,000 on the high end for employees to fund that, which totals $3.384 million. We would use another $500,000 from either our position funding or some other source that I believe comfortably we could do. Now, you know, that's my personal opinion. I wouldn't tell you all that if I didn't believe that we could pull off and do and still financially be sound in FY21 going with the $2,000. If you want to fund it at just what we receive between the county and our carryover funds and our CRF, that equals option B, which is $1,750. So we would see a drop of $2,000 to $1,750 on those employees that were here on March 16th and still remain employed. Option C would go to $1,500, and that gets paid from our CRF, which is the 1345, the 500 coming from the county, and then we showed on here taking only $519,000 of our CRF funds of $2 million. Then option D says, okay, we just use the CRF, which is a 1.73, what we're getting related to FY20, 500,000 from the county. And on that number, we would go down to $1,250 versus the $2,000 that the Board of Supervisors are giving to their full-time employees, in which we discussed with y'all last week. And, you know, again, this is my opinion, but I'm conservative by nature, but I'm comfortable that we could pay the $2,000 and still be financially sound for FY21. Any questions?
So, so one, if you go back to the last slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so position funding. So that 500,000 would come out of the 700.
That could come out of the 700. That could come out of year-end funds at the year-end this year. I mean, that could also come out of our carryover. There's multiple places that funding could come from.
The actual, but yeah, that.
But we propose the positions, the 500 of the 700.
That's 500 to 700,000.
Yes, sir.
That we did not use for positions because we've held off on hiring several positions this year and frozen them. That we will not plan on moving forward with this year.
Okay, thank you.
Board members, any other questions, comments to Mr. Kranz or in general?
The hold harmless, what is that back on the first slide? Brenda, could you go back to the first slide? I'm sorry, the second. So if the hold harmless happens, it would be 1715 plus 1747 if we don't use the 500,000 that we have in there for the $2,000 stipend. Is that correct?
But it's coming in two different sources. So
Okay.
you when you look at the 1747, that comes about because that's half of the carryover from FY20 of the 2.086 million.
Right.
700,000, which comes from the positions, which gets us to the 1.747 million.
Okay.
The 1.715 is when all of our budget gets unfrozen by the county. We have a 3% raise for the full year in the budget of $3.4 million, 3.43. Half of that, since we're recommending not to implement that until January 1st, half of that 1.715, which is budgeted as if it was spent from July 1st to December 31st, wouldn't be spent. So that creates a cushion right there with inside our budget. And which we've said, in the event that the ADM is frozen through March 30th, that was done during the special session. The upcoming general session, it's anticipated they're going to go from April 1st to June 30th and make that hold harmless. If they do that, then we wouldn't be touching that 1.715. That would be there to address whatever challenges we may have in the spring that we don't know about, which I don't anticipate any, but maybe something in FY22.
Okay. So that would essentially give us almost 2
3.4
million
million.
less 500,000 to do the $2,000 stipend.
Correct. It would give us about 2.9 million.
Okay. Thank you for that
Yes, ma'am.
clarification.
So wait a minute, 2.9 million that we would have banked,
Correct.
that we would have left over if we did the 2,000 and we were held harmless.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's but that's still an if, correct?
Ms. Jamie, it is an if, but as many folks as I've talked to in Richmond, trying to see exactly what was going to happen in the general session, I have a very high degree of confidence that in FY21, we will be held harmless. They'll extend it from April 1st to June 30th.
So, Ms. Karan, are you wishing for us to go ahead and have a discussion about this in general, or do we just want to discuss parts of this?
Well, we
Well,
have to
later
have a
on.
discussion so that we can actually approve A, B, C, or D at the end of our meeting today,
Yeah,
or
sure.
actually right, at the end of this discussion, because we did vote that we're going to give stipends, early on. It was 2,000 then, with the hope that we'll get to 1 million. Now the question is, since we have only getting 500,000, how we want to move forward. So yeah.
So I'll let the board know. My thinking is still similar to, I think, the last time we met on this. I think that there's two things. Number one, the hold harmless, as Ms. Bond said, is I understand that it's something that's likely to come through, and I think that's great, but it hasn't come through yet. So I am not in favor. There would have to be a really good reason for me, I think, to want to take that risk, to spend money essentially that we don't have, or to get rid of our cushion that we might need. This COVID situation is an ever-changing situation, and I understand where Mr. Krantz is coming from on what our expectations are for outlays in the spring, but I think we still don't know, especially having not really gone through our discussion on changes that we might want to make for next spring. I'm uncomfortable giving up cushion at this point, and it's not just I don't look at this as a I'm taking it away from staff and we're going to use it for other things. I think in a lot of ways there's things that we may want to do in the spring that could really potentially make their lives easier. So I don't think this is an either or. It's really a how to do things. And I think that, if we do get the hold harmless as expected, then we will have the money in the spring to give another stipend, which is probably the way that I would rather go. So I think where I land on this, on the options is, I could support option B for the 1750 because that's what the board agreed to last time, which, starting to get a little bit outside of my comfort zone on some of this stuff. But I could also support option C so that we could give, next month we could give a $500 stipend or perhaps even more, if we do have the money and depending on what the situation looks like from a hazard work point of view too. So that's kind of where I am, somewhere between option B and C. I don't think I can support an option A at this time.
I think
I thought we agreed to 2,000 the last time.
We agreed to 2,000, assuming that the Board of Supervisors provided us
Right.
with $1 million.
Yeah.
Right, but you said
Which
we
they
agreed
did
to
not.
we never even talked 1750. So you said we agreed to 1750. We never even talked about
Oh,
that.
sorry. I should say we agreed to it's the amount of money. The 1750 reflects the amount of money for 2,000 minus the $500,000 that we did not get from the Board of Supervisors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we basically agreed on giving the 2.3 million RCRF and our carryover, and then on top of it, we were hoping to get the 1 million. So since we are only getting the half of it, I think I'm comfortable with option B, and which is pretty much keeping our promise to our employees and not touching any other R funds beyond the 2.3 we promised. So I definitely feel comfortable with option B. Any other comments, questions?
I don't feel comfortable with that. I think we talked about 2,000. The other county employees are getting 2,000. Our people deserve 2,000. They've gone above and beyond, all of them. Tommy, Mr. Kranz, feels comfortable, and I trust his judgment. And I feel like if we were ever, and I hear what Mr. Chewbacca is saying, but that's also kind of what the Board of Supervisors was saying. Well, we want to save our money and see what we can spend it on, and we don't want to spend it on your employees. And so now we're saying the same thing. We want to save it and see what we can spend it on, but we don't want to spend it on our employees. And I think that right now we have our staff is overworked, and we are losing them. We are going to lose them. And I know that everyone thinks that's a threat and that it's really not going to happen, but I'm not so sure about that. And I think anything we can do to help our staff during this difficult time, we should be doing, especially since we've already discussed this. And like I said, since other county employees are getting this. That's my opinion. So in my mind, the only option that I would agree to is option A.
Any other board members?
Okay, so I'm going to agree with Ms. Cass. Our employees have gone so far above and beyond what their job descriptions are that it is just unbelievable. Not to mention, and I don't care what anybody else thinks about it, they are putting their lives on the line by doing their jobs and going above and beyond with this virus. $2,000, I think, is the minimum that we should be able to do. And the fact that their raise is not going to be retroactive still really is a burning spot for me. So to do less than that and then have county employees have their raises be retroactive plus get 2,000. I think would be a slap in the face to our employees. Yeah, things are going to be tight. Well, things have been real tight before and we've made it through. But right now, the folks who are stepping up, hanging in there with us, helping to prepare our students the best they can during this time to be our future, they deserve this and more. Quite frankly, the way this whole discussion and this whole thing has gone about is very disturbing to me. To kind of hang people out there and then kind of pull it back, and now everybody's watching to see what's going to happen. What am I going to get? This has just been done miserably. That's all I can say. So yes, I am absolutely in favor of number of A, and trying to figure out some kind of way that we are able to put that other half of their pay for 2020, 21 back in their pockets at some point. And as far as our part-time employees, I am more than happy to give them the same amount as everybody else, because what they have done as part-time is nothing short of full-time. And I thank them. I thank all of our employees.
I would like to echo all of what Ms. Franklin said, especially, knowing our part-time employees who fed our children. And at first, no one knew we were supposed to be, we needed to wear a mask. And so they were doing all that, delivering food, putting the bags together with no protection. And it was very, very disappointing to watch the Board of Supervisors nitpick our part-timers because their part-timers weren't getting the same amount. And I'm sorry, it doesn't even come close to equaling out what our part-timers have been doing during this whole pandemic. So I'd also like to do that shout out like Ms. Franklin did. They kept our children fed and, got to see them every day. And those things are very important to me. We also delivered books. It wasn't just food. It was the library books as well, which is extremely meaningful to a lot of our children. So my choice is option A. I feel very confident in what Mr. Krantz has described, and I feel like there's a very good cushion.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. Well, I have to I know I'm going to let Ms. Bond and Ms. Parton speak, but I just want to, clarify. Definitely, I totally agree what Ms. Franklin said, and I totally agree what Ms. Graham said. I keep telling this to the face of our employees too. They've been doing above and beyond, and they really deserve every penny. My thought process was, that we can give another bonus when we really know we are hold harmless. So that was the approach I was taking, not taking anything away from them. But since we really don't know, we're going to be hold harmless, even if we think we will, whatever the time that is going to come out in a month or so, we will talk about giving the amount that we couldn't give as a bonus to them again. So that was my approach. But Ms. Bond, Ms. Parton, please.
Well, I support option B, and I've thanked and tell people in person how much I appreciate them. The bus drivers email me. I assured them I would not vote unless they definitely were included, because I know how important they've been through all this process through the summer. I know everybody's gone above, but everybody has gone above and beyond in everything they do. It's been a huge difference of life for everyone. But with us having not knowing what COVID is going to bring, not knowing what new administration is going to bring, not knowing what the future is going to bring. And I'm tired of worrying about not having a dime to do this or do that, or listening to the fussing because a position was cut because we don't have a little bit of extra. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody either, but if that 300 different, not even 300, 250 makes somebody think I don't appreciate them because we want to leave a little bit in the bank for assurance to make sure that everyone in this county can maybe have a little bit of certainty if something else should arise, I do apologize. But I'm for option B, and I mean no harm to anyone. I just think it's the smart business thing to do. It's no disrespect to anyone, not thinking they didn't come through, they didn't do their job. It's just what I think is something we should think about. We're getting ready to remodel 3 new schools. And yes, I understand all about that. It's capital and it, but I've also seen, oh, well, you know, this happened and we kind of had to play the shell game. Been done that, been there, been done that. And I don't want to see that happen again. I agree. In the spring, if everything comes through, we'll make up that $250 if that's the case. But that's just what's smart. And I think if you ask most people in their own homes, if they were looking at a budget like that, they would agree. That's where I am. Option B.
Ms. Karan, I would
Certainly,
like
yes.
to like to echo you and Ms. Bond. Again, no disrespect to any of the staff, the teachers, the part-time people. I agree with Ms. Bond. The part-time people, we were adamant that, you know, they went above and beyond as far as work and hours. Everybody has done an absolutely phenomenal, tremendous job, and we can't thank you guys enough. We appreciate you like you would not believe. But at the same time, you know, I feel like I was put on this board to be smart and to watch money to make sure that we can continue to do what we need to do. And at this time, again, not knowing for sure what's coming in, not to say that they're not deserving of it. Absolutely, they're deserving of it. But we need to make sure that we can cover what we need to cover. And again, with new administration, we could be shut down again. Heck, for all I know, we might be delivering meals again next semester. Who knows? But we need to, when that unknown is there, I just feel like the smart business thing to do again would be to hold off, give what we can now. And like Jamie said, if $250 is that much of a big deal, I can't imagine that they wouldn't understand us being a little cautious, so we could still at some point give that to them later by all means if we can, absolutely. But at the same time, we need to be very cautious about what we do, because I really don't want to see anything have to be taken away from them because we gave them the full 2,000 up front. I mean, that's always a possibility, and I would hate to go down that road as well. So right now, the most I feel comfortable with would probably be option B at this point.
Board members, any other comments? Right now, I have 4 board members supporting option B and then 3 board members supporting option A.
Okay, so I've got a couple of
When
comments.
Penny's done, I go.
Okay. So when we're talking about the new administration, for the last 4 years, public education has been underfoot. And I absolutely believe that the new administration will understand everything that needs to be going back toward public education, back toward respecting and giving our teachers and other employees who work to keep this public education system in this country going more of what they deserve and more support, and not trying to take things away. I believe that $250 to a lot of people, especially this time of year, is huge. It's huge, especially when we have part-time folks who barely make minimum wage, and where we're constantly trying to up their wages, and they're staying with us because these people could walk away. As Ms. Cass says, they could walk away. But we have had people who have hung in there with us. So yeah, $250 is huge, and public education has been scraping and begging for years. So as I said before, I think we will be able to make it through as we always have, but we can't just keep asking folks to work like they're working with the possibility of their lives on the line and not show them everything that we can.
One thing I like to mention is, I'm sorry, Sue, let me mention this real quick. Yeah. Is the Board of Supervisors, they didn't vote on this last week, but 4 of them in discussion at the end basically said that if hold harmless did not come through, then they would make up that funding. Is that correct? Mr. Krantz, could you elaborate on what they said?
What they said is that they would get that either through an increase from CRF, as they see where their CRF funds actually end up at. They may have funds greater than 500,000 to give us, and or from their year-end funds, but that they would cover the $500,000 in some form or fashion. One of those two methods.
With all due respect, I think that if they have leftover CRF money, I think I think we should be a priority for that. I think that, from listening to those discussions, it seems to me that 1 million should have come to us. I understand to some degree, I don't necessarily agree, but I understand their position on it. But from what I understood, it was an issue of, and like Miss Franklin said, they are saying some of the same thing. So I think the chances are they are going to have extra money, and I think that we should get the first 500,000 that comes from that, and that should be used towards a $250 stipend for next spring.
But if I could just add real quick, if it comes from their CRF funds have to be spent by December 30th. There is no leeway of any kind.
Right.
It actually has to be spent.
Yeah,
Wait, I want to understand that. Well, go ahead, Sue, but then I want to circle back and understand the timing on this.
Sure.
Okay.
I stood in front of that group, and one of the things, they are giving their county employees $2,000. And they started this by making a proclamation and agreeing to it in one meeting without any conversation with us whatsoever. And they make it as though our employees are not county employees. Our employees provide a service to every single one of their employees and every single person in this county. And everyone should be appreciative of that. People want their kids back in school. Well, who's going to teach their kids? The teachers, the staff. The schools can't run without them, but they want more and more. That we want to send our kids back full time. We want all these things, yet we can't even give an extra $250 to the people who are putting their necks on the line. How many times I heard at a board meeting how they're essential workers. Teachers are essential workers. Well, why don't we treat them like essential workers? Are county employees essential workers? Some of them are, yeah, the police officers, not every county employee. They're all receiving the same thing. And I think the message being sent to our teachers is that you are not as important as those other county employees. And I know there's mistakes made on both sides. The supervisors made mistakes, and our communication might have been something that aggravated the Board of Supervisors. But at the end of the day, I don't see how holding back $250 is that much money is going to save. We're going to be able to do so much next year with that, especially since chances are we'll have the money anyway. I can't agree with that whatsoever. Anyway, that's it.
Mr. Chabaka?
Yeah, so Mr. Krantz, I don't understand some of what you just said, because what you said that the county told us is that if they had CRF money and what was it, that if they had CRF money left over and we didn't get the hold harmless, we're not going to know about hold harmless until the spring.
Let me
Okay.
All right, let me clarify. So what they said was on the $500,000 that it could come from one of two places. One was their CRF. What Angie showed to the Board of Supervisors is she's got about $800,000+ in CRF funds. CRF funds, just like the $1,730,000 we have, has to be spent on or before December 30th. There is no ands, ifs, or buts about that. That is a hard deadline. What the county said is that in the event that they didn't have any more money from CRF, or if they didn't get us an extra $500,000 from CRF, which I don't know where they would get that from because their own schedule didn't get to $1 million.
And not just where, when would they get that, Tommy?
Well, as they're reconciling their cash on CRF, we could get that anytime between now and they're supposed to send a certification come the end of November that all money will be used. And because if any entity is not going to use all the money by December 30th, the states could give it out to other entities and say, can you use the rest of the money? Because everybody wants to spend it, but it has to be spent by December 30th. That's a hard date and not encumbered. Not like at year end where we can encumber things, but we don't get it delivered for months at a time after year end. In this case, the cash actually has to change hands. The bill has to be paid on or before December 30th.
Okay, so what does that have to do with hold harmless? So we're not when
the hold harmless. We're not going to know anything on hold harmless, and on going beyond March 30th.
So how is I guess I don't understand how the county is going to backstop this if we don't get the hold harmless money. How are they going to give us $500,000 from the CRF money? I don't understand that.
It won't come out of CRF. At that point, if they're going to do it after the first of the year, it's going to come out of their fund balance. It could come out of their projected year-end funds.
All right. Well, so then, so that's when it needs to come out anyway, I guess is what I'm saying. That's
under that source. Yes, sir.
And I guess to clarify, I hear Ms. Franklin, I hear Ms. Cass loud and clear. I disagree. Sometimes we spend a lot of time on this board, praising teachers and praising our staff, and it sounds like we're, there's one faction that is pro teacher and one faction that's anti teacher, and that has not been my experience. We are all pro teacher. If you ask me, should the tax rates be this? Should we give everybody a raise? Should we do this? I think most of the people on this board would vote for it. That's not what the issue is. The issue is, where does the money come to do these things? What kind of risk are we taking? If we had that extra $250 to do right now, this year, then we shouldn't have been considering $2,000 in the last meeting. We should have been considering $2,250, quite frankly, which, and quite frankly, I have not given up on hope that, I don't think there's any reason why our employees could not get a slightly larger bonus even. I don't, what the county does with I agree with what you're saying, Ms. Franklin, but I don't know that it's useful for me to basically try to tell the county what to do at this meeting. We have to figure out what we're going to do with the money that's been given to us. And so I just want to make clear that, for any staff members or teachers, anybody that's out there, that this is not an issue of I support you or I don't. It's an issue of, where's the money coming from? Did we get it? And do I want to keep pressure on the entities that give us the money to provide that additional money for us? And that's kind of where I am right now. And I think also from a, I want to say an equity point of view, but when we look at this current stipend, there's a portion of it that's being apportioned for people who work during the spring and summer, and there's a portion for people that are working, that have worked for us up to this point in the year, which we're 3-4 months into it. If somebody comes on board in January, it might be nice. One of the advantages that I see about splitting this up at least somewhat, besides the fact that I think there's a possibility we could give something bigger than, if we did $1,750, let's say now, or even $1,500, and not, I want to say held back the $250, but but put the 250 towards the spring, that we could potentially add to that. Not just another 250 to make it a total of 500 or total of 2,000 total for the year, but that we potentially could go even higher than that. So I think there is that possibility. But I also think that for people who come on board for our recruiting in the spring, if we need to hire people, and I'm sure we will, that's something else they can look forward to, as well as hazard pay, because those people are going to work hard and those people are going to take risks, and they're going to be in there for a whole whole semester as well. So it would be nice to have something to give to them as well. And I think for people who work all year, it's moot, they would get the whole amount.
So let me be clear with the comments about two factions of one pro employees, one not, or teachers, or whatever you said. I at no point have ever thought that about any board member. We may disagree on things, but I do understand that everybody on this board wants to support our employees who support our students. So I really didn't understand where that came from.
May I ask?
I think it's the messaging of when you say, well, we have to support our teachers by doing things like this. Nobody's arguing whether or not we need to support our teachers and our staff. The disagreement or the discussion here is really about how we're going to pay for it and that kind of a thing. So that's where that's
it's both. Okay, it's both. How we're going to pay for it and how we pay for it to show the amount is what this is about. Okay, so yeah.
To be clear, I am not against the amount. I'm just saying that we shouldn't pay the 2,000 in full right now before we have guarantees on that money. That we should split it. I think this is what Ms. Karan was saying.
I think that's what I was saying.
This semester, between the payment now that will be bigger, and then a smaller payment in the spring.
And I understand exactly what you're saying with that, but some of the other comments, yeah, I don't think so.
At this time, if you don't have any other comments, may I have a board member make a motion?
I move that
Make a
we
motion.
approve option B.
Second.
I have a motion and second, and I think we will, any further discussion? Ms. Drake, when you have a chance, we can have a roll call.
Absolutely. Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
No.
Ms. Graham,
No.
Ms. Cass.
No, and I want to make it clear, it's not because I don't think they should get 1750. It's because I think they should be getting 2,000.
Agree.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Karan,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you again. One more time, clarify all the employees and teachers and staff watching. We do want you to get to 2,000 eventually, once we see that hold harmless passes and we know that we have the money. And I hope we'll have this discussion continue to get another bonus in the months ahead.
Yes, and thank you, Ms. Karan. And also as we move forward too, hopefully we can get on the same page as the county, because they are our funding source. And they can help us equally fund our teachers and their salaries like they do their own. So,
and when it comes to the salary, I know Ms. Franklin mentioned that at one point, if we know we have resources, I think we can decide to go back and retroactively pay them if that's an opportunity and we have that money. I know we can't do that January, now we can't do that. We have to start January 1st, but if there's an opportunity, in March, I'll be happy to vote for retroactive salary increase as well.
Yeah, that might even be a year-end discussion at that point.
Yeah.
We'll just have to
Yeah.
wait and see as we move forward. So, but thanks to all of y'all for the discussion. Next, this was asked to be placed on the agenda. The COVID notifications update. Ms. Gerritsen is here to give some thoughts, and you know, Ms. Cass, I think, asked for this to be on there, and but anyway, Mr. Gerritsen, could you go ahead and get started?
Yes, sir. Good evening, board members. Just a brief update for you this evening. You probably well remember back in late June when we were discussing our return to school plan, the concept of notification, meaning what we do with notifications, kind of how and to whom and when, was kind of a key component of our discussion. And now that we have a little bit of experience with it a few months into the school year, we have had some continued discussions from members of the board and also from members of the community, and even at times within our leadership team as we become more familiar with this process. So just a quick update this evening, and we will present just a few options for you if you want to consider doing something different. So Ms. Drake, next slide, please. So currently, just to kind of bring us up to speed, all of our employees are notified when there is a confirmed positive case with the potential for exposure in the school. All of our employees are notified through email. We have done that notification since our first one back in late August. Mr. Knott brought it to my attention at one point that we could include our substitute teachers as well, and we have done that more recently. Our families are notified through the school messenger program, and we do kind of the double component there of a phone call and or an email, depending upon what that parent is signed up to receive. Thus far, this is actually data from Friday, so we do have a little bit of an update here. As of Friday, we had made 20 of those notifications. We, of course, did an additional today. So that takes us up to 21 total division-wide notifications. That's 21 phone calls or emails. 37 positive cases at that time. We announced 5 more today. Our longest streak of consecutive calls or notifications we're actually in right now. And again, with an additional notification today, that takes us up to 9 consecutive school days of a notification. We have not made these notifications over the weekends or on holidays. That's why you may notice that a day such as today, Monday, might be a little bit larger notification than some other times. But it's really difficult to get that information and confirm that information over the weekends. So we tend to move that to Mondays, and same thought on holidays. One of the reasons that we really wanted to share and discuss this with the board tonight is just in this month, the month of November, Ms. Drake has shared with us, we've had about 15 to 20 families reach out to us and ask to unsubscribe, to kind of take their name out of the hat to receive an email or a phone call. And, you know, we have some thoughts about maybe that's because they're unfortunately hearing my voice too much. And I will make the note that we were very intentional in having me do these notifications, in that, you know, I think most people now realize once they hear my voice, it's a COVID notification. And that was hopefully to keep them listening to Ms. Drake's messages, such as when we had to close school, well, I guess move to remote school here recently when we had some bad weather. I will also tell you that amongst people who know me or my friends, there have been some that have kind of teased me a little bit and said, we hear your voice, we know what it is, we hang up. Or there will be some who will say, hey, I wait and at least hear the schools that are named, and then I hang up. So again, I think that's meant some fun teasing among friends, but we have lost some subscribers, and we worry a little bit about our people not going to get other messages because they're a little fatigued of getting the COVID notifications. On the flip side of the coin, I will also share that we continue to receive thank you messages coming back to us when we send notifications. There are almost every time a family or two who reaches out, or even a staff member who says, hey, thanks for sending the notification. Thanks for keeping us in the loop. Additionally, you and watchers out there on YouTube may have noticed that we've had to revise the notification a little bit due to some special needs. And that's been noted very well by people as well. So we do know that there's also a population that is paying close attention, listening closely, or reading very closely. So that's where we're at as of today. Ms. Drake, if you'll give us the next slide. So some options, just if the board wanted to discuss and wanted to possibly consider something different, we tried to give you a few options, and it really could go a lot of different directions. I have 6 options for you here tonight. There are certainly more, and there are certainly, these are all viable options. We didn't want to overwhelm you, but you could also take these some other directions as well. I will just read them quickly, and then I tried to number them and color code them if the board wanted to discuss. Option 1, leave the current system as it is. Option 2, rather than making a division-wide notification, notify just that specific school community. For example, if CMS had a positive case, that would be reported to the CMS staff and the CMS families. If you'll remember, board, you discussed this back in late June, and at that time determined that you wanted to do the entire division. So we kind of bring that option back to you. Option 3, working with Ms. Drake, we have the option to allow families or staff or community members to register, to sign up to receive those division-wide notifications. So if you didn't want to hear those, you wouldn't sign up. Option 4 has a part A and B. Option 4, in the school messenger program, if the phone calls are causing the greatest discontent, we can drop it back to email only. No phone calls for me. The phone calls would be Ms. Drake's notifications for other school events, but my notifications for COVID would all come as email. And you could leave that again as you are now as division-wide notifications, or you could go ahead and tailor it back to school site only. Option 5, we talked about, instead of doing calls, multiple days in a week, we would choose a day of the week and we would do a weekly division-wide notification where it would total up at a week's worth of cases and send it out perhaps on a Friday or a Tuesday as you directed. And then option 6, we have added, since that discussion back in late June, really you've seen a lot of places, a lot of organizations go toward a dashboard. That really wasn't happening back when you discussed it in late June. So that really wasn't even on our radar. So in option 6, we have implemented a dashboard that we do update daily. We could step away from the notifications and just have the dashboard available. So if you didn't necessarily like the phone calls or the emails, but you wanted to know the information, you could check the dashboard daily. That's an overview of a number of options. Of course, there are others, but I put that before the board tonight for your discussion and consideration, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Garrison. Board members, time to discuss.
In the beginning, I thought we were going to do something more like option 2 for some reason, that we were just notifying the people that were involved in that staff and family of that school. That's kind of, or that specific school community. That's what I thought we had intended in our discussion, was what we decided. So the whole county doesn't know what's happening. If someone wanted to keep it a little bit of a, not completely out there, but I guess it wasn't. I guess I misunderstood, but I like option 2 myself.
Ms. Cass?
Yeah, I think that people have the right to know what's going on in the entire community. I think what's happening, and Mr. Garrison kind of alluded to the drain on everyone of reading the same exact letter every single time and all the same word. It's like this lengthy document and even then when we took out certain words, people noticed it, and probably the phone calls or maybe were overwhelming. And I'm wondering if we couldn't do some sort of a mix of this, and where we notify the specific school community, but then on a weekly basis, we do a division-wide notification or an email that lets people know what's happening throughout the county. Because I think it's important for people to know what's happening. People do interact with others with that throughout the county. And then when we say specific school community, my opinion is it should be within the Strand, because I would want to know if there's cases. If my child goes to BHS, I'd want to know if there's cases in BMS, because I might have children who also go to BMS. So I would want to know what's going on within my Strand, where my children might be exposed, because I have children in other schools. That's just my thoughts. But I think doing the letter to everybody for all the community, I think it's maybe a little bit too much right now for people. That's my opinion. And that's kind of why I brought this up today, because I've been getting a lot of people kind of saying this is also a lot of people are very concerned. And that's a whole nother issue. The fact that we have so many cases right now, and there's a lot of people who are getting concerned over the number of cases that are starting to pop up in the schools, which is another issue.
I would be perfectly fine with option 2. I definitely don't want to do anything that gets rid of the phone portion, only because not every one of our families has email. So, I don't think we need to notify the whole school system every time. I think just in the school community is sufficient enough. I think otherwise we start scaring people, and people will start thinking, oh my gosh, this is out of control, which it is, or it's spreading all over all these schools, which is not. And I don't want that to happen, because, we need to trust the contact tracing, and people will be notified if they are direct contacts, and they need to either quarantine and or be tested. So I just want to take the fear factor out of this. And I think the more they're seeing and hearing all this, it makes them feel like, oh my gosh, there's all these kids, or there's all these adults, and it could be none of the above. It could be, someone who didn't even have contact with any children in that school. So anyway, I just think it would take the panic out of things a little bit if we scaled it down. So thank you, Mr. Garrison, for giving us these options.
Ms. Drake, I know your hand was up.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to provide a quick point of clarification, but did not want to interrupt any of the board members. If there was ever an indication or notification from the health department that there was spread in a school building, that would always occur. You saw that happen last week, where we did a notification that there was an indication of spread, but that our mitigation procedures are working. So I just wanted to make sure, as you looked at all 6 of these options, none of them are an indication that communication would go away. Our intent is that communication would still occur.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other board members?
Okay, so I can understand that maybe some people are tired of getting the phone calls. And yeah, people are afraid. And it is spreading. The tracing, is a whole nother issue. So I would be comfortable with us being able, and I don't think we have an option that actually addresses it, is that folks could opt in or out of the countywide and just to their community, as Sue said, because if there's someone in the Blacksburg community, Christiansburg, Eastern Montgomery, or Reiner area, I believe folks would want to know that. So if there's a way that they can choose if they want just their community or the whole district. But one of the concerns for me is the communication that happens when we have a situation where there is a possibility of spread in the school, or there is the perception that there may be, so that we can help our staff and families understand this is what's going on. This is not what's going on, because rumors go crazy. So I think we need to do a better job of helping folks understand what exactly is happening when all of a sudden there's a big group of people who are no longer in the building. What's going on? You know, what is the truth behind what's happening, instead of letting people imagine.
I have a question for Mr. Garrettson, because a lot of people have asked me about this, about presumptive positives and why we don't report presumptive positives.
My understanding when we approved the notification process back in late June was that we would do confirmed positive cases. So, you know, by definition or by nature, a presumed positive case does not have any testing behind it to back it up. Additionally, we don't have a great method to ensure that we get all the information about presumed positive cases. Of course, every confirmed positive case must be reported to the health department, and we can therefore confirm back and forth with the health department. Where a presumed positive case, there isn't always that same clear, if you will, paper trail to indicate that it exists.
The problem is that there's a lot of presumed positive cases. That's where the issues lie, because those are the cases that are current, as opposed to the ones that we finally get from the health department that are, you know, many days later after they have been tested and they test positive. You know, we're talking 4 or 5 days later. And the presumed positives are the ones that are most dangerous, and that you were exposed to somebody who could have been positive, you know, yesterday. And I just think that I understand that people, the fear factor, but I mean, it is there. Why shouldn't we be somewhat afraid? I mean, it is, nobody wants to get sick. Nobody prefers to be ill. I mean, we're fearful because we don't want to spread it. We don't want to give it to our relatives. We don't give it to our elderly parents, and so I don't understand why I have, you know, several people, and this is not just teachers. I have had several parents who have concern, and staff within the schools who have concerns about students who they're not reporting it to the health department. They're not getting tested, and they've got family members that have COVID, and none of those are getting, you know, none of those are reported. That 40 whatever is small compared to the number of people who have either had it and haven't reported it or been exposed. So the presumptive positive is something I've been hearing a lot about lately, and I hear what you're saying, that it's hard to measure it and how accurate it's going to be, but that's what's going to really affect the staffing numbers, because that's when people are out.
Well,
let's get back to, oh, sorry, Mr. Garrison.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to add one piece to that with the presumptive positives, you know, and again, I never mean, I think you guys have heard me say many, many times, I never mean to speak for the health department, but to have a presumptive positive, there's a positive, a confirmed positive case in that experience somewhere. And so if you take a household, for example, where there is a confirmed positive case, those students should already be quarantining at home anyway. Or if there's an employee in that household, they need to be quarantining anyway. So even if it does come back to the point where someone would be declared a presumed positive, they should have already been in quarantine anyway before it got to that point. I understand that that still concerns many, many, many people. And it still concerns many, many people that, you know, there can be asymptomatic positive cases out there that no one knows anything about. And I think, Ms. Cash, your point is very well taken. You can call it, I guess, fear or worry, but I think it is very foolish to not have a very positive, a very definite, healthy respect for this virus and what it can cause. And you're exactly right. Nobody wants to see anybody get sick, and nobody wants to be responsible for anyone else getting sick. You are correct.
Mr. Chabaka or Ms. Parton, would you like to add your opinions on, because what we have in our hand right now, whether the board wishes to change the notification procedure or not. So I haven't heard from Ms. Parton or Mr. Chabaka if you are leaning keeping same or any other options that are viable for us.
Well, I do think our community has the right to know what's going on. However, I believe when we voted back in June, I think I was more leaning to the option number 2 to begin with anyway, just because of possibly the overload of information that we're dealing with now. I do think that we are updating our dashboard, and I do think that we can go into the health department website and a lot of other websites and local health information that's available if we want to find out exactly what's going on and correct figures and numbers. And I do feel like that we are still providing the option of being remote. So if anyone should not feel comfortable with having their kids in school, you know, that option is and still will be available. So I feel comfortable with option number 2.
So for me, I think there's really 2 different issues here as I see it. There's the issue of the notification, and there's the issue of what the notification is telling us. And I think that this is kind of what, you know, I heard at least Ms. Franklin and Ms. Cass talk about some of this stuff. And I don't know, I'll hold off on that discussion for now, but I do think it's a discussion we need to have. And that's basically that when we voted in July, the point of what we were trying to do was to be as transparent as we possibly could. The intention at that time, I think, was, you know, if there's a positive case in my kid's classroom or on my kid's bus, I want to know about it right away, you know, and then parents can choose whether or not they were going to, you know, if you wanted to pull their kids out after a certain threshold is met, you know, 3 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid in your classroom, they would make that decision. And I think a little bit of that has been taken away from us because of the legalities of doing something like that. I do also think that we are, to some degree, not being as transparent as we could be. For example, the presumed positive. If somebody is telling us about a presumed positive case, I don't understand why we wouldn't report that or count that. But anyway, maybe that's a discussion to have at a different time. But I do, so my 2 thoughts are that we do need to have our notifications potentially be a little bit more helpful, as Ms. Franklin was saying. And second of all, I don't think we should do anything that, you know, there's going to be fear because this is a scary situation. And I don't think we should do anything that that makes it look like that we're hiding something or makes us hide things. I think we should be transparent as possible. You know, I'm probably, you know, there's several options that I could probably support, but, you know, probably somewhere around option 4 3 or 4 where people can either decide, to opt out of certain notifications, or that we do email only or something like that. I could support either of those.
So I have a question, because so what's the difference between quarantine and presumed positive? Is it not the same thing? You should be quarantining if you have been exposed or think you've been exposed, right? Isn't it the same thing?
Not exactly, no, ma'am. And particularly with students, where there's a great deal of flexibility in terms of moving from in-person to the remote setting. We have a large number of families who will make the decision or the determination that based on a situation, they want to quarantine or they want to isolate their family, or even maybe with no involvement with the health department. Or you may have a situation where maybe a dad has possibly been exposed at work and he's going to go in for testing. While he goes in for testing, many times the family will go ahead and pull the students out of school. And then the dad's test may come back negative, and they're released to return to school. So there never was a positive to be a presumed positive. In that same situation, if a dad at home was maybe exposed at work or somewhere, has some symptoms, begins to test, the children are quarantined at home, and then dad tests positive, and then soon thereafter, perhaps the children begin to demonstrate symptoms, then they may be deemed to be presumed positives. They have an exposure, they have symptoms, they're going to go ahead and be presumed positive in the absence of a test.
And so,
Okay.
Jason, am I right that when that happens, the health department basically says no need to take a test? That's
The health
what happens.
The health department could determine they don't need to take a test, or even a private practice doctor. It may be a situation where dad would call and say, "Hey, I tested positive. Now my child has symptoms. What do you want to do?" And the doctor may say, "Well, what's your student doing about school?" And dad says, my student is learning from home. Can he stay there for 10 or 14 days? Yes, he can. Then okay, we're just going to consider him a presumed positive. Or they may even say, okay, at that point, we're not going to test the child. We're not going to put the child through the test without even kind of officially declaring it a presumed positive. It just doesn't result in a test.
But the student has been in the school, and that we're not reporting those numbers. So that student could have been in school, could have exposed others, but they're not being reported because they're presumed positives. They're not like the ones that we send notes home on, correct?
Contact tracing would have already taken care of that, Ms. Cass.
In what way?
In what ways? So they're going to ask just those questions that Jason said. They're going to say, when did the dad get it? When did the students start to show symptoms? Were they in school, prior to that? That will all get determined with contact tracing.
But do they notify the school like we notify the school on positives?
They will notify the school if there is a potential. They will notify the other people in the school if there is the potential of them having direct contact.
But we're not notifying the school community like we are for positives. That's right. The point. And that's where I think people are saying, why are we not letting the school community know about presumed positives as well as positives? And it's misleading because there are a fair amount of presumed positives out there. In addition to, there's probably more presumed positives than there are actual positives.
And if that affected the school community, Mr. Garrison, we would have been notified, correct?
Yes, if they felt like they needed to quarantine other people based on that, then yes, the health department would have reached out to us. But Ms. Cass's point is correct. there will be, and that's part of the issue with presumed positives, is we may have a student go out and take a 14-day quarantine based upon a household situation or another exposure situation. And we may not hear anything back from them, any response back from them till their 14 days is over and they return back to school. And I think that speaks very much to the flexibility of being able to move from in-person to remote. And I think it also speaks to, you know, the pandemic we're in that there are some who will go and isolate in quarantine and never have a test.
So my question is, would the board like for us to, is there a consensus of the board for us to also start reporting presumed positives if we're notified by the health department that it's a presumed positive?
Let's do this one at a time, because I think in our hand first, how we communicate. You know, are we gonna change how we communicate, you know, once a week to this, you know, whole community, or just a particular school community? That's the one thing that we have to make a decision. And the other one is what we communicate, you know, what on the agenda was, I think, how to communicate. But obviously we can discuss or change what, if we want, what to communicate as well. But I think there are two different things. Am I right?
You're correct. And for the what we want to communicate, that has already been discussed prior. So someone who did agree who voted yes to what we were reporting would have to bring it up to be put on the agenda for the next meeting in December.
All right. So
wait a minute.
I'm pretty sure I voted yes. I'll bring it up.
You voted to give just the basics?
I think we all did, didn't we?
Not me.
Maybe not Penn.
Well, which vote are you talking? I mean, there's really only one vote from that July meeting, Ms. Graham.
There's two votes, actually. There was one as to what we give,
Mm-hmm.
and a second for who all it goes to.
You talking about were those specific roll call votes, or were those part of the little votes that we did?
That was that online thing we did, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was at that meeting, right?
Yes.
I think I try to think about it.
Because, well, we
Either way,
actually,
right now, the option for consideration is what we have on the table, and that's what we need to be focusing on.
okay, so I have a question about what you just stated, Ms. Graham.
Yes.
So you said, in order for us to take action on what's communicated, it would have to come back after someone who voted yes, right? So
it would have to be asked to be put on the agenda for someone who voted yes, and then the majority consensus would have to agree to say, yes, we want to put it on the next meeting's agenda, which would be the December meeting.
Okay, so why is this on the agenda? I don't remember it coming up at our last board meeting. If that's what you're saying is supposed to happen, why is this on the agenda tonight?
That I cannot answer.
I mean, that's a good point. But I think, you know, because we were getting many notifications and worried about that, too many notifications makes people worry and not maybe listening. We decided we should have it as a discussion, whether we want to change the way that we send this information out or not. So, but I see your point, Ms. Franklin.
I mean,
I would believe that was put on by Dr. Meyer and Ms. Drake and Mr. Garrettson for the exact reason that Ms. Karan just described.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with it being on the agenda because I'm glad it's here because I think it needs to be discussed.
I thought I asked for it to be on the agenda.
But we can't say one thing one time and one thing
Right.
another time. we've got to make sure we're consistent with what we're doing. So
Can Ms. Drake look for the vote from the July meeting and see who voted what?
So the vote on the letter occurred in August.
Oh, okay.
You voted on the letter separately. I pulled it up while you were talking because I couldn't remember. And let me look. Hold on, just sorry, I have it in a different screen.
yeah, because the letter we sent back to be revised or something.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You saw it on August 4th, and then we brought it back again on August 18th.
Mhm.
And you approved the positive case notification letter as a general guideline for communication to the whole division when there is a positive COVID-19 case in the building. That motion was made by Ms. Graham and seconded by Ms. Bond. In favor of the motion were Ms. Bond, Mr. Chewbacca, Ms. Franklin, Ms. Graham, Ms. Parton, and Ms. Karan. Opposed was Ms. Cass.
And
So actually on the same letter, we said, what we communicate and how we communicate, all right? That was it was combined. So
Yes,
at this time, I think we can, do it one at a time. I mean, it's again the pleasure of the board. Let's do one at a time. First, let's see if we want to communicate the way that we say we are communicating, or we want to change that. And then, there should be another discussion what we communicate, whether that will be tonight or not. That will be it wasn't, on the agenda, but again, and they are tied too, and it was on the same letter. So I, don't see them two separate things either. So
because like Ms. Bond said, what she thought was going to be happening was not necessarily what is happening. And I'm the same, not necessarily for the same issue though. So as I stated earlier, I would like to see another option, and that would be that folks could be able to opt in to district-wide or just to their community.
I think my question will be something that we can do. Is it possible structurally have an option like that? Because my thinking was let's continue with option 2, but then give weekly division-wide notification what is happening in the division. So it's like something with option 2 and option 5 together. But if we can give the option to our members of the community that they can actually select, certain things and not select other option. I don't know how that physically possible or technology-wise possible. So,
If
So
I may,
Brenda, can you help us out with that? Can we do option 2 and option what? The opt-in
Right.
for the
Yeah.
division?
having school-specific opt-ins is really complicated. Mr. Garrettson asked about that last week, so he was able to foresee that you would that would be an option that you would look for. But it's just very complicated because we can't create a link. So right now, our student system, our student database, it syncs up with School Messenger. We don't have to do anything with it. It's a database that syncs. When we talk about a subscription list, and we've created them for you all before, when there were really high profile issues like redistricting, where certain people really wanted to be kept informed along the way, we could do that. But it requires a manual upload every time we do a notification. And so if we're talking about multiple schools in a day, that's a manual upload for multiple schools every day. So there's a barrier to the work there, whereas we could do an upload for the whole division smoothly every day because it's just one upload every day. We could do that smoothly. I could do it for Mr. Garrettson before he makes his calls. And that's why we offered that way.
Well, then how we all feel about notifying the specific community when the case that, that's option 2. And then at the end of the week, giving a weekly division-wide notification, you know, of the total number, the cases on the other part of the communities.
Yeah, because option 2, even if it is an specific school community, if you have children in different schools in that community, you're still going to get notified because your child's in that school, correct? So if you have somebody in the middle
No.
school, you're going to get those notifications. And if you have somebody in the elementary school, you're going to get those notifications. So if
That's
you're getting specific, you're getting that. You know, so that's why I think 2 would cover that. And then if someone wants to do the weekly, I mean, could we not do that and then do a weekly, do both of them? Would that be a headache?
Now, I think, you know, what do you think about this? This is another option. Do number 2, like you say, and then Mr. Garrettson gives a Tuesday update every week anyway, because, you know, it goes in to
Right.
my telegram to you. Maybe we send that update to the division via email with the case count. Is that case count in that update too, Jason?
It is a slide where we share the MCPS dashboard, Dr. Meyer.
Yeah. So then the entire community gets that entire COVID update with all the information that you all get on cases and what the health district looks like, and you know, we could send that every Tuesday like we send to you.
That's what I said in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
I said
Okay.
2 and 5.
But to
Yeah.
Ms. Graham's point, not everybody gets email.
Well, 2 is by phone and email.
Right, but.
And
Dr.
so is
Meyer
5. So
just
we could
said-
do both.
But Dr. Meyer said email.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't we're talking about number 2 a lot. I just want clarification here. Isn't number 2 the thing that Miss Drake just said is really hard to do?
No,
no.
no. She said that picking either or division or specific is what's hard.
Okay.
Right.
And if I may mention on option 2, since it is getting some discussion, I just want to go ahead and also make sure that we're clear that we have some populations like central office staff and operations staff. We're not necessarily tied to a school. So if we had, like myself, if I tested positive, if we're using option 2, that wouldn't go out as an individual message because I'm not directly tied to a school, but it would get cleaned up in option 5 when we do division-wide notification, if that's what you chose.
Now that also brings up another question. I'm glad you said that. What if we have teachers that work at 2 different schools? How would that work?
We haven't crossed that bridge yet. So we would do some discussion here among the leadership team, unless, of course, the board has a direction they would like us to follow.
So.
So let me ask it differently then. Hold on.
Yeah.
So if somebody let's say somebody teaches at Christiansburg Middle and they teach at Blacksburg Middle, how do we specifically know, Ms. Drake, what school triggers their email?
Both schools would trigger an email for the
Both.
staff.
Both
member.
schools. Okay, then that's
So
all.
our
We
Google
can
lists
negate what
aren't
I
restricted.
asked. Thank you.
Thank
you.
I feel like we're getting, I realize the whole concept of this was to talk about what we can, as you know, how we communicate this out, but I think we're also getting lost in the weeds here, and what's important is what we're communicating. And I think the issue at hand here, and I hear this from so many people, is there is a lot more going on out there than we are making people aware. And we're sending these letters that really aren't even accurate. And I think that's what people are, it's not so much getting a letter. It's getting a letter that doesn't really tell you the whole story. And that's what I think frustrates people, is they get this form letter that says the same stuff over and over, but it doesn't really tell me what's happening in my school. And that's what's frustrating staff, and that's what's frustrating parents.
I haven't heard that one time.
Really?
No,
And I think
Wow.
we've had this discussion before,
I
and
haven't heard it one time.
Okay, I can forward the emails to you if you want. I'll ask them if it's okay.
I think we've had this discussion before, and that's where we landed on only reporting the positives, because that's the only factual information that we have.
Again, let's decide on how we communicate first, and if the majority of the board members would like to change what we communicate, we can definitely do that too. But let's stick to how we communicate right now. So are you?
Okay, so I'll do this. I would like to make a motion
That's
that
what I was
we
just gonna ask.
combine, okay, that we combine option 2 and option 5.
Thank you. Any second?
I'll second.
I was just about to suggest, Ms. Franklin. Thank you. I
Okay.
have a motion and a second. Any discussions further?
So this came up a few days again. I don't mean to be the stick in the mud on this, but I think it might be worth hearing from our community. I think on this, if we were making a small tweak, it'd be one thing, but I think with doing this and with what Ms. Drake says, you would only get a weekly notification about everything, and then you would basically have to pick a community to be emailed or called. Is that correct?
You wouldn't pick it. It would be your community.
It would be your community.
Your
So if
school,
you were
your
interested
school,
so if
your
you're interested
school.
in getting the data across several communities, then you wouldn't be able to, you would have to wait a week. It'll only come through the weekly notification, right?
The data dashboard is still updated every day.
You can see what's happening the rest of the community looking at the dashboard in terms of numbers, the positive numbers. But you will get direct communication from the school that your kid's in, or you're working, or you're affiliated.
Well, I still think that if we're going to make a change like this, that we should give a couple, give it one meeting to get, some public input if there is any. I mean, I'm not against this. I just, again, this is kind of like a few weeks ago where it's just a procedural thing. I don't think we should be bringing things that aren't, we don't have to do this. And I agree with Ms. Cass that there's probably, a bigger discussion we need to have about, what these emails are saying. So.
Let me ask a question. On option 5, there's an and an or in there. Is this was the motion made on telephone and email, or telephone or email?
I think it was written that way, Dr. Meyer, because not all families give us their phone number.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, fewer now, unfortunately, than before. And so we can't guarantee that all families have a phone number with us, because sometimes they do block our notifications or ask to be unsubscribed.
Okay.
So we have to try to communicate whichever they prefer, or let us communicate with them. So there is a motion and a second on the floor. So can we get a roll call?
We can. Can you remind me who made this second?
I did. I'm a little confused now. But
would you like me to read I was planning to read the motion out, because I kind of took it and worked with it a little. Is that okay?
Sure, please. Yeah, I was going to suggest.
I want to make sure it's what Ms. Franklin and Ms. Cass were looking at. Adjust the COVID notifications as follows. A school will be notified by phone and email when there is a positive case in the school community. A weekly division-wide notification will go to all families via telephone and email, and to all MCPS staff members via email. Does that sound correct? Ms. Franklin, is that the motion that you want?
Yeah.
Ms. Cass?
yeah, that's what we talked about.
Okay. And you're ready for me to do a roll call, Ms. Karan, is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Trebacca?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now, before we move on, let me ask the will of the board to move on, or to put it in the next agenda to decide what the letter should say, because the letter was based on actually our attorney's directive And, we may have to, if we're changing anything, we may ask again, probably his input. So is there enough thumbs up to put on it?
I would like to discuss it further. I don't know if I can say that because supposedly I said no the last time, so I can't, but.
So
I would like to discuss it further. And I said yes, so there you go.
Thank you.
Any
I think
other-
that's the more important thing, what's in the letter as opposed to how we distribute it.
All right.
I would like to stay factual. So no, I don't think the letter needs to be changed.
I mean, one hole that we have basically exposed in the last semester essentially is this idea of the presumed positive. So that's not, you could stay factual and still report that and be more transparent.
Well, Ms. Karan, so basically we're just asking for us to, we're not voting on this tonight. We're just.
No, we are just asking consensus, so it will be on the next meeting's agenda to discuss further. Any other board members? I heard Ms. Cass and Mr. Chabaka wants to discuss.
Me, I do.
Ms. Franklin wants to discuss. Any other board members?
I don't see why, I mean, all we're talking about is discussing sharing with our community important information that they can use to decide how they want to lead their lives. And withholding information, I think that that's what we're doing. And I think you're also going to find staff is going to be displeased with that also.
I mean, I don't see it as we are holding information, and I trust the system is actually working, but I don't see why we shouldn't be discussing. So that will be for board members, so we can have it on the agenda to discuss.
Thank you.
Whether we will change anything or not, that will be.
In the meantime, Ms. Karan, could we maybe contact the lawyers and somehow get more information from them about this now that because it's been several months and probably they've had to deal with more of this over the last few months.
We can definitely find out.
Hey, Jason, does the health department, they let us know of presumed positives, correct? Or do they?
I don't know that they do in every situation. Right. And that's the piece. When we have a confirmed positive case, there's a lab report to back it up. And I hear the board's desire to discuss, and that's certainly their will. I would submit to the board tonight that, much of the information we get, much of the fastest, most direct information we get is from the individual or from the family. They'll reach out to the school, or they'll reach out to HR, or they'll reach out to me, and they'll say, hey, I've tested positive. And we'll say, do you have a lab report you can send me? And we have that copy that then confirms it, and we can already go to work. We can already get started. Whereas somebody mentioned earlier, it can take several days to get that report to the health department if you've tested somewhere other than the test department, other than the health department. So when we start to talk about presumed, you're always operating a few days behind, a few days late. And in some ways, if it's a household situation, for example, you're always kind of operating cleanup because you've already taken people out of circulation, into isolation. So I don't know that we're going to get regular presumed positive reports unless they're coming from the individual themselves. And then there's nothing behind it to kind of back it up. There's no documentation.
Nothing factual. Yep.
Yeah.
But doesn't that lag exist with regular testing also, Jason?
It can, yes, ma'am. Like I say, again, it's usually the individual, right? Like many times what we get is a person gets their positive result. I'm sure they take a little bit of time and kind of come to terms with that. And then they pick up the phone and call their work, or they pick up their phone and call their school. And many times we are getting that just as fast or faster than the health department. And we are getting started right then. So, presumed positives are a different animal.
And they've not been
Okay.
diagnosed by a doctor, and I just think you're given some very unclear information.
Well, are we, do
Okay.
we want to have this discussion now, or are we having it the next time?
No, we
Again?
are having
Well,
the
The
next,
next time.
but Ms.
Right,
Franklin was saying
but there's,
something.
yeah, there's another piece of this, and that is quarantine. So when we have several employees in one building go into quarantine, it leaves the whole community in that building and beyond questioning what's going on. All these people are not showing up for work. What's happening? At some point, we need to be communicating that, okay, there was a positive case and folks have chosen to quarantine. Not that they are positive or even presumed. They've just chosen to quarantine or to be tested and quarantine. Because that's what's happening.
I think you're starting to step into some individual privacy issues there, because if, for instance,
No, there's
I
no
finish?
privacy there.
Can I
When
finish, please?
when we say one person that there was a positive case or whether there was exposure and folks have chosen to quarantine.
May I finish on the quarantine part? There are some families who are, as Mr. Garrettson explained, maybe the family member got it, and there may be children in that family, and the parents have chosen to quarantine. I don't think that should be reported. That's the parent's prerogative, and it has nothing to do with anything happening in that building. Because contact tracing would have notified people if they would have had exposure. And second, there are families who are traveling, and they may choose to quarantine when they come back to protect others. And again, that is their private option. The same may be true for a teacher who needs to go take care of an ill relative, and they choose to quarantine when they come back. That is no one's business, and it doesn't mean they've had exposure. It doesn't mean there's an outbreak in the school. It doesn't mean anything. Again, it gives false information to the community.
So let's be real here. We have a situation, and I'm not talking about families or individuals. I'm talking about our employees, and they choose because of possible exposure within the building to quarantine. And everyone knows that these people are not here today or for the next several days. Then we need to help folks understand what's going on, that we're not having a major outbreak, that folks have chosen to quarantine. So we can't hide that behind a family's choice or an individual's choice. This is a group of people or several people who are our employees.
Mr. Garrison, what did we do in those cases or in that case?
We have not done notifications on quarantines.
That's right.
At all. And certainly I hear the board has a desire to discuss this, and I understand you plan to continue with the discussion. If it pleases the board, I will spend some time speaking with the health department, getting some information regarding presumed positives and what we could reasonably expect from them and perhaps other physicians' offices in regards to presumed positives.
Thank you.
And I would add to that, Mr. Garrettson, it's not just the presumed positive. It is things that Ms. Franklin was alluding to. There are privacy issues. I understand that there's some there, but I feel like to some degree we're I understand the reason that we did some of those things, but there's, I think there's perhaps more information that we could give. Maybe there isn't, but we've got some experience.
There are other school systems who do this. I mean, there are
that's
other
what I was
school
just going
systems.
to say is that beyond, you mentioned that you were going to talk to the health department. I would encourage you to go also outside the health department, especially on the legal front. I don't understand how, we've been told you can't do that. And there are other school systems in Virginia who are giving the notifications that we intended to give when we voted on this in July, or when we discussed it in July anyway. So the more information you can collect, the better. I mean, it's possible we'll need to go back out, and get more information after our discussion. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Ms. Cass.
I understood that we'd be talking to our attorney as well. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now we are moving on. Let's see what is next. Next one is a possible joint meeting with our Board of Supervisors, board members. I just want to make sure that we do wish to meet with them. They suggested November 30th, and we are happy to host everything at the Operations Center, so we will have enough space to separate and safely meet. Are you all available for November 30th? And then I think we have to direct Dr. Meyer, what agenda items we would like to discuss with them. So it's just an informational, let's put it on your calendar, and I hope you all agree that we have to have this joint meeting.
Okay, I would like to know what the purpose would be,
One thing that we have talked about is starting the conversation about a revenue sharing agreement moving forward. That would be something that I know a couple of you expressed to me, and I would be really interested in having this conversation with the Board of Supervisors.
If we do it on a Monday night, all I ask is, can we make it at least 6:30? Because 6 o'clock meetings are really hard for me.
Yes, we've all said that.
Yeah, I don't even quit work till 5:45, so it makes it hard for me to get somewhere by 6.
Yeah, and same with me. Actually, 7's better with an in-person.
Yes, with any kind, 7 is better. And we had that discussion.
We can definitely do 7 o'clock. We won't include any, like in the past that I think we ate and then we meet, but we don't have to even do that and just start 7 o'clock in the PD Center.
I personally would like, being a Monday night up and right after Thanksgiving, I would like to have a time limit on it too, that we don't go till 10 or 11 o'clock or midnight.
Even 9.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the meeting times have just gotten too late, and we need to reel them in.
I think that probably could be managed if we have not too many items to discuss to begin with. My of course wish to have the joint meeting was before all that discussions happened, but they didn't give any earlier time, and they suggested November 30 as the first time moving forward. So again, it's really our board's desire to moving forward to meet that day or not to meet if we don't want to.
Were there items that they wanted to discuss?
Dr. Meyer, I don't know, they specified anything from their side yet?
No, I have not heard from their side as to what they wanted to discuss.
Is there any possibility we might be able to bring up the stipend issue again and get them to pick up the extra $250 a person?
No.
You guys go for it.
Well, initially when I asked that joint meeting, when they were mad at us, and so I thought, it will be nice to meet and talk about all those things that we should have talked before they actually made all those decisions. but of course that train is gone. So moving forward to cooperating more maybe is the topic of the evening, and with the revenue sharing, that will definitely be good if works out. So I
What-
see thumbs up for this. Is it okay moving forward?
Something else too is I've had a conversation with a former Roanoke County Board Supervisor member who actually put in the revenue sharing agreement in Roanoke County. He sort of was behind that. He's no longer on the Board of Supervisors. He actually, I think, moved to Virginia Beach, but I actually talked to him on the phone a few months ago, and he said he'd be willing to talk to us to sort of give an idea of how that was set up in Roanoke County when it was done. And so he's very willing to give us some information, which I think would be good. Revenue sharing is something that happens in Roanoke City, Roanoke County, Salem to an extent. That's why we always see the news in Montgomery County when budget comes. We're the best show in town because everyone else is already sort of
Knows
set in
what
stone.
they're doing.
Here's what happens when the additional revenue comes in. It's already decided as to how much the school gets and how much the county gets. And so, and hopefully maybe we can get to that point too.
All right, board members, did we really have 4 thumbs up? 4 thumbs up at least for the joint meeting? 1, 2, 3 is fine. 4, we got it. Good, thank you.
I don't see my thumbs up, so. But.
Sorry. All right. The next item is our additional December meeting. As you know, board members, we have the December 1st meeting, but we might be discussing budget and not budget, but I'm blanking, salary increase, if of course by that time governor signs. And so if we want, and we know that second meeting in December is December 15 is our last meeting with VSBA. So anything we see December 1st or December 1st meeting is so very loaded. Are you willing to have another meeting on December 8th?
So Ms. Karan, let me expand on that just a little bit.
Sure, please.
On December, right now, we sent out the survey that we showed you all at the last meeting.
You're gonna see the survey.
Yeah, survey was done past Friday. This week, the data of the survey is being presented to 5 different advisory committees. And so they can look at and give recommendations. And so December 1st, we'll be bringing that survey information back to you and with the recommendations of these committees. And so, on December 1st, you may want to take action on any recommendations that that are brought to you, or you may not. You may want to wait a week to take action. And so pretty much we were like, okay, this is one of those, you can wait till that night to make a decision if you want an additional meeting to take action a week later on certain items and how we move forward with school for the rest of the year, at least in the coming weeks, or not. So we basically we didn't want to force you to make decisions on December 1st. And if you need more time, we want you to have that time because we're going to be bringing some important information to you on December 1st. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does to me.
Yeah, and I was almost, I don't know why I blanked out the survey.
Right. Now you might come after December 1st, you might at the end of that meeting say, okay, no other decisions, no decisions need to be made. We don't need another meeting.
But I guess it will help. It will help tentatively for us to keep that night open, I guess, December 8th.
Yeah.
Just in case.
So that's what we're asking. Tentatively, we can decide December 1st, if December 8th, if you all can keep that open, just in case we need to move forward with the discussion and maybe votes for December 8th.
Sounds good. I think we can do that.
I'll be out of town on the 8th, but so will I be able to do it virtually?
You should.
You've
You
called
haven't-
in one time, right, Miss?
Yeah, I haven't
Moss?
done that yet.
Yeah.
No, I haven't called in at all.
Yes, ma'am.
At
It
all.
should be just fine.
Definitely you
Yes.
can.
Well, yeah, in that case, mine may be in question. We'll see.
And moving, the next item is severe weather codes. Dr. Meyer.
Yes. Just wanted to, because of the unique situation that we're in, we've come up with new severe weather codes that deal basically with COVID. And this here is just for information. Pretty much the code A it's like a 2-hour delay, but we would, basically cancel morning classes in terms of in person, and they would just be all remote for a 2-hour delay. That's the big change there. Instructional staff, if they could access internet at their home, then they can do instruction in the morning in middle and high schools, and their regular remote classes at 8 and at 9 o'clock in the morning from home. If not, they would have to come in that morning to do those. But basically, we would still have classes in the morning. It would just be all remote during the morning. And then elementary students would just simply complete some type of extended learning activities while at home. Code B is school buildings are closed for students, and it's an inclement weather day. Assignments for students, 12-month non-instructional report. Teachers do not report on B or C unless it's some type of required PD or meeting that they would need to come to. And so that's the same for C as well. C is the difference is the building's open 2 hours late, but it's still a closed day for students. D is a system shutdown where no one comes, including 12-month employees. And then some other directions we'll give to teachers as well, and when we send this out. But just wanted to show this to you and see if you had any questions about it.
I don't understand A.
A is, okay, so we have morning and, all right, students in secondary schools are morning or afternoon, depending on the day. And so what would happen is, it's like a 2-hour delay. We don't want to run buses too early. And so basically we would not run buses at all in the morning, but students would still be required to be remote and be in class remotely.
So I'm going to have a different kind of population. So my mornings are going to be all remote, but my afternoon's going to be half remote and half in person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't. That's a tough one because that then throws off your instruction and how you do things.
The only difference is the only difference is this: you're still going to have those kids that morning, whatever morning it is, except half of them were going to come in and half were going to be online. Now all of them will be online that morning, whatever scheduled classes there were in middle and high school on that morning. So if that morning, it's first, second period day, then, usually, what happens is half the kids will come in and half will be online. Basically now, instead of having half kids online remote and half kids in front of you, you'll have all of them in front of you. All of them remote at one time.
So what about the kids who don't have internet?
And so we are, then of course that would have to be adjusted for the kids who do not, when they would come in later on that day, we would have to help get them to work that they missed that morning. There's no doubt about that. We don't have many in that situation though. That's the thing, is very few. We've given 450 MiFi devices out. And so I don't know the exact number, but there are very few who do not have access to internet now because of all that we've given.
Okay, so, I've gotten all the bugs worked out for my regular setup, but then we have a severe weather situation. and I may have to go to my aunt, my grandma, somebody else's house where I will not be able to access. So now you're saying I'm going to have to do double the work and catch up.
No, what's going to happen is the buses are still coming at 11 o'clock to pick you up for your afternoon session if you had an afternoon session that day. If you're an afternoon student, if you were a morning student that was supposed to come to school that day, then you're at home all day. If you're an afternoon student that day, then you're going to get picked up and you're going to be brought in the afternoon. And
or an all-day student.
Right. An all-day student then would not be picked up in the morning. They'd be picked up midday. Right. Correct. Yep.
Which would be the ones, the very few that we have without MiFis.
Right. And they will be brought in to make sure they got what they were needed. You know, and that's where we have, 2.5 hours, or actually they have about 45 minutes to an hour between classes that we could pull those few students to make sure they got whatever they didn't get. And of course, we'd ask teachers to be reasonable in their expectations during that time too.
I have a question. I've never understood why on days that we close the buildings for students and teachers, but we require 12-month employees to be there. If it's dangerous enough for teachers and students to stay at home, how come it's not dangerous enough for front office workers, ladies, to have to come in? I've never understood that difference.
Well, in the past, that's where we've sort of added codes B and C. In the past, if there are no kids there are no kids for the teachers to teach.
Right, I get that, but 12-month non-instructional personnel report on a regular schedule. Well, if it's bad enough that nobody has to come, but we expect them to be there at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, because we're not talking about cleaning. I mean, or, my mind's not thinking right now. We're not talking about the cleaning staff, so to speak, or we're talking about ladies in the front desk as well, correct?
Well, we're talking about B and C is when it's too dangerous for buses to transport students. Okay. That's why we've placed in there, teachers may need to report under this system if they have planned meetings and PD. If not, they would be working from home that day.
Okay, but that still doesn't answer my question.
Of what? Say your question one more time then.
Like, how come 12-month non-instructional personnel has to report on a regular schedule?
Because 12-month non-instructional personnel, most have to come to the building to actually do their job, where a teacher can do their job from home. When a teacher does not have kids, I mean, their job is lesson planning, grading, things that they can do from home, okay? But our 12-month employees, most of them have to report to the building to actually perform their job. Custodians, administrative assistants.
Okay, so we couldn't put some kind of leeway in there that they could be an hour late due to inclement weather of some sort?
Yeah,
I mean,
code C, we do.
Okay.
2 hours
And that's what code C is. Code C, it's 2 hours late for anybody, for everybody.
Okay.
If the road's really bad in the morning and we know they're going to be okay in a couple hours, then we do a 2 hour late. That's what code C is. A 2 hour late for employees as well. Yeah. Yep. That's something that we put in a couple years ago, and folks really appreciate that, not having to be here right at 7 or 8 o'clock.
Right. That's exactly.
Right. So we did a 2 hour late for our 12-month employees so they could get to work safely as well and take their time and get snow, ice, whatever off the cars and that type of thing. Yep.
Yeah. And I would just hope that our folks would use their good judgment, because in 2 hours, it may still not be good for some people to be able to get there. And I've learned that the hard way with me trying to go to work, because when the car stopped, it looked like I was going up the hill instead of down the hill. And I decided I won't do that anymore.
Well,
It's
we do
not worth
have, and our principals, they work with the folks in their building, and there's some places that we know that it's difficult, or even in other counties where our employees come from other counties. And I mean, if somebody can't get out the driveway, because, everybody works with everybody and we don't count it against them. We really do. And so we're not, it's not a black and white issue with us. I mean, I remember Danny having employees down in Eastmont when he was a principal that couldn't get there, and just it is what it is, and we don't count it against them. Yep.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Any other questions on this weather codes? And I am moving on to unfinished business. Any matters of unfinished business, board members?
Since we don't really talk about it on the agenda, but I've been hearing a lot of concern about the increase in cases and expectations for the future. I seriously doubt the board is in a position to make a change to the level today, but is that something that we'll talk about the next time?
Yeah, Mark, December 1st, we're going to give you data, from our surveys as to how people feel about things. And, a lot of the questions centered on, wanting to come back more or not. And we'll give you that data on December 1st as to what families are and teachers are thinking in the division right now in terms of what to do. And that will prompt that conversation, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. I think so. Any other matters? And moving on to new business. Any matters of new business? Hearing none. Try to look around. And the agenda preparation. And I think you'll see it. Let's see all right. There we go. Agenda preparation. We have, of course, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, legislative meeting. Do we know who is going to be there, Ms. Drake?
I know that Senator Suderline is sending one of his legislative aides. I believe Chris Hurst is attending.
Okay.
I apologize. I do not have the list on the top of my head, but
that's all right. I was
we
just
won't
curious.
be alone in the meeting. I do know that.
Which is good. Thank
So,
you.
Okay, I missed that one. Our legislative. How is that?
I forgot to put it on the slide. I'm so sorry. It will be a Zoom meeting with the state legislators in the morning at 9 a.m. I think Ms. Karan announced it at the last school board
meeting. I think so, yeah. Yes, I did. And I think you send the Zoom link to that, and also Zoom link to tomorrow night's A-Bar meeting, all right? That's in the email. That's great.
So, Yunan, the December 1st meeting, then the thought process is possibly we'll have a December 8th meeting for some, because that's going to be just the survey itself, to me, is going to absorb a whole lot of time.
That's the possible advantage of having December 8th if the board agrees that we won't have one meeting that goes to 1 a.m. and then we can kind of divide topics into two meetings. Definitely can be done. I mean, we'll do the survey December 1st, and then some other things may go to the December 8th, and to be a little better balance. That's what you were suggesting, all right? I didn't mean
Yeah,
to.
because there's things on there that I don't think are as important as what we're dealing with right now, which is, reopenings and COVID and or not reopenings. And I think those things are much more important than some of the others that I think can wait. And we talked about this before about just the length of our meetings and, how focused your brain can stay when you're going till 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I don't want to be getting data from the survey at 11 o'clock at night.
No, definitely won't be good.
Yeah, and so looking at some of these items, we're gonna do it like we've done in the at that last meeting that actually moved along pretty quick. Where we're going to expect you all to take a look at things and I guess know it prior to coming. These are not going to be presentations at all. And so.
And the order over there is not necessarily the order that we'll see them. It looks like it's in the data from reopening surveys, the last thing, but that's really not the order we will see. And again, if there were things that we can move and if we are sure that we can have the December 8, there is then we don't have to worry and we can try to balance it. Definitely.
A couple
So
things.
I think the norms and protocols, I think that we should wait on that until after our meeting on the 15th, because that could change. Something could change.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's an immediate need to do that one.
Thought process on that. I mean, we definitely can, and I know we thought about it because our last VSBA obviously December 15, so it could very well be at our first organizational meeting in January when we go through all the ethics and code of conducts, regardless, and
Reorganize.
anyway and reorganize. So that can definitely be part of it. I think the thought process was, do we want those before the year starts or we start the year with them? But there's, we can start the year with them. There's no reason why not. So
I agree.
Definitely we can do it that way.
Yes, so strategic plan has to be voted on as well on December 1st. That's not on there too.
Yeah.
So that actually has to be voted. But we're not going to present it again. We just need to vote to move forward with that.
Okay? Yeah, we have seen that. So.
Okay. And, definitely, we have to talk athletics. What I'd ask you to do with athletics, so it's maybe a quick conversation, is we'll put it on there. But Mr. Knott, have you already sent to how we're looking at doing that with the region sports?
I have sent the MCPS plan for play criteria to the board members. It has not been explained, and there are other pieces such as spectators and other things like that that we still need to share with them. But the criteria for determining whether or not we can play has been sent to the board members.
Okay, and that's the regional approach that we looked at. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is.
So take a look at that, and what's happened, is we have we looked at a regional approach with Region 6 and other athletic districts in our area to come up with a consistent way of if we actually compete or not, and when we compete, based on basically simply if it's orange or red that week, we don't compete. If it's orange or red in the area, so take a look at that, read over it. If you have any questions, be great. Call Danny, and he can talk you through it and give you an idea. Of course, the governor pulled back the 250, and we were going to change. We're changing that as we speak to most likely no fans will be allowed to come to games this year, but we do have an option for them to see it. So anyway, we talk, but call Danny if sports is your thing, and give him a call, and he'll be glad to share how that's going to all work out. Okay.
Sounds good. Any other comments, questions regarding agenda moving forward? We are ready to enter our closed session. Our next order of business is closed session. May I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss two personnel matters as authorized Section 2.2-3711 Code of Virginia.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Now we are in closed session.
Does everyone want to take a break while I shut down the YouTube live stream and get everyone outside of the meeting for you?
Please. Thank you.
That will be good.
How long a break are we taking?
5 minutes.
Okay.
Let's say, yeah.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye, Annie.
Right. Bye-bye. Good to see you, Annie.